Let's do roll call.
Mike Hopeen, John Nicholson, Marilyn Shippert,
Present.
Keen Hudson,
Present.
Jack Sproxton. He's here. And Mike Seaman.
Yeah.
Let the record reflect that John Nicholson just arrived. We just did roll call without you, John, so
Too
that's
much
why I
talk.
wanted to make sure you got on the record.
Too much talk. Okay. About our visitor, Stacy, do you have any comments before?
I don't have anything necessarily. Right. We do have a Veterans Treatment Court graduation scheduled for Tuesday, August 23rd at 4 o'clock. That'll be on the 4th floor of the courthouse. We've got 2 graduates again that'll be graduating from that program. So if anybody's able, please feel free to stop by. We've got Mike Hopeen that's going to be there at our graduation, which I appreciate. Thank you. He's going to be presenting a coin to our 2 graduates. Sure. But please stop by if you have some time.
Okay, Amy.
Morning. I don't have a lot. I just wanted to say I am down 1 employee, so I am in the interview process again. However, I have gotten over about 60 resumes in 1 week, so that's a good thing. Some of them aren't showing up. That's the bad thing, but so I'm doing interviews again right now. That's all I've got.
Lally.
Good morning. A few things. I'm recovering my generators from the prison. 3 of them been out there for about 45 days, saving about $500,000 worth of meat. So one, they did have some damage to one, so they're going to repair that. That's the contract they signed. If there's any, they need to return the equipment in the same condition it was delivered. So they'll be repairing that one. So they'll have that one for a while it gets repaired. Working on depot days. The plans for depot days keep me busy right now, trying to make sure that's going to go off safe and without any problems. So a lot of concerns there. As you know, things going on in the nation are not conducive to having festivals. So. And then I'm working on a grant to purchase their jersey barriers, but they're water-filled jersey barriers, so they're easily movable. They weigh about 1,600 pounds when they're filled with water. And we borrowed some from Rockford for the Petunia Festival, and they work really good for setting up around the perimeter where you're having a festival or a gathering or something to assist in preventing vehicles from driving through that event. So it's just, again, nationwide, it's been a real issue. So hopefully I can find a grant out there for about $25,000 for a trailer to haul them and about 15 barricades. So that's what's going on in my office.
Trying to think. I've looked at 2 situations of grant possibilities that are out there, and we're trying to think on whether something that category would fall into one of these 2 grants. I'll have to take a look at it again and see. So
Appreciate any help there because I'm running into some dead ends. So they just don't qualify for anything.
okay. Morning, Mr. Boonster. We're going through comments.
Good morning, sir. Thank you.
Anything enlightening for us?
Nothing enlightening now.
I'm not going to ask the other part, but no further comments.
Nope, nothing for me. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Mike, I've got something real quick.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So I just want to put it on your radar that coming before the full board this month, next week, will be a resolution that solidifies, affirms about 20 or 30 years worth of commitment that the county and the city of Rochelle have made towards the development that is north of Stewart and south of the county line. Been a lot of things that have been done over the years that where we've committed to a industrial development of that area. As you know, because you've had Jason Anderson here before, that's really been a focus for the city of Rochelle. In order for the city of Rochelle to expand their industrial area, they have to dip now into Lee County, which is good for both sides of the table because we get the revenue that comes from that as well as the jobs and the economic growth that comes from that. But we're at a point now at a crossroads where we want to pull together in a resolution all of those different things that we've done to work towards that development, and we're going to take it to the next level. We are going to be petitioning for a rezone of some of that land from agricultural into heavy industrial zoning. And we're also going to be venturing into oh, for Pete's sake, a contract, help me out, somebody, Charlie's.
Intergovernmental agreement.
Intergovernmental agreement. That's where I was going. Is that what you said? I got it just about the same time you were saying it. We're going to be venturing into an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Rochelle that really does solidify what both sides of the table want with regard to the growth in that area. So be watching for that at the county board meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that if anybody has any. The other thing I have that is a little bit later on your agenda, coming from the zoning department, and because I don't see somebody here from zoning, I'm not sure if, Jack, are you able to hear me? Do you want to do a little bit of a review of that, or do we want to, or do you want to wait till it gets on the agenda? Or we get to that point on the agenda, maybe?
We can just wait. Yeah, I got sound now. I was unplugged, so I am plugged in now. So yeah, when we get further down, we'll talk about it.
Perfect. That's all I have, Mike. Thanks.
Thanks. I gotta get something so I can see you and Charlie sit.
I'll get a white flag.
We can get one of those big silver round globes put up in the corner right there. Okay, next. The review on the claims is there on your, should be there on your laptop. If you have any questions on those at all. If not, we'll go ahead and move on. You can take a look at those. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to come back to it. Okay, department heads, let's start. Stacy, anything new going, any hurdles that we have to overcome?
No, we've just been, we're trying to anticipate the future, I guess, and what that pretrial is going to look like for our office. We're seeing a lot of pre-sentence investigation reports are being handed down to our office, which takes a lot of time to prepare. So we're just kind of trying to juggle things and anticipate what those changes are going to look like come January. I think there's going to be an influx of work in some areas, and just trying to figure out how to manage that and make it work until we can get a good idea of what the norm is going to be going forward.
Okay. Any issues that we may need to address, any IT issues, programs or anything like that?
No, nothing at all.
Okay, good. Good. Any questions for Stacy? Thank you, Stacy. Amy?
I don't have anything really. Same with Stacy. We're just kind of preparing, trying to get ready to see how we're going to go forward come January 1. That's all I've got.
So being down one isn't going to be a new hire, it'll be a replacement.
Yeah, this one will be a replacement, correct?
Any questions for Amy? Okay, Mr. Lally, anything additional from what you just commented on? Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lally? Okay, Mr. Boonstra, anything?
Not much to add. I could reiterate what Amy and Stacy are talking about, but I won't belabor that. One of the things that we've been working on that I think has been really useful for my office, the judges and law enforcement, is we've developed a new or adopted a new search warrant software that allows us to do search warrants remotely. You probably remember from your law enforcement experiences back in the day, you'd have to come in, get a judge out of bed or do whatever you needed to do to get the search warrant. Now we're able to do so through a web-based platform that allows us to have video conferencing with myself, whoever the judge is and whoever law enforcement is that's seeking the warrant. We have templates in place that all law enforcement within the area will be able to use those templates. So everything will be a little bit more uniform. And it seems to be working out pretty well in terms of expediting and efficiency. So something to bring to you guys.
Okay, great. Any questions for Mr. Boonstra?
I'm not saying so. That is the e-warrants that have been kicked around for many years.
I don't know if it's the same one or not. The software that we're using was created out of DuPage County. They've been using it for a couple of years already now. And it goes through a process of law enforcement will take the template. They will put in whatever probable cause language they need to put in there. Otherwise, the rest of the stuff is pretty much generated for them and then sent on to me. I'll review it and then I'll send it on to the judge and the judge will look at it, swear in the officer, and then sign off electronically.
Very good. We'd always had a little pushback on that over the last 10, 12 years, but I'm glad to see it evolving.
I think COVID helped a bit.
Is it something we've got a subscription to or?
Correct. And you may remember when we were talking about the budget talks, this is about $2,500 a year. Correct. Let me pull it up here so I can give you the exact name. I don't remember it off the top of my head. It is Video Court Remote Proceedings. So you might see it under Video Court 2022, and then next year it might change up because they're going to do an upgrade as well. Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Boonstra? Wendy, anything additional that?
Nope,
we
not-
need to bring up?
Nothing except what's on the agendas.
Okay, Mr. Scrogstad, you are up with.
Point of
you two.
order, we never approved the minutes of
Oh,
last.
that was correct. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go back. Did everybody have a chance to look at previous minutes? They're okay. Or are there any corrections or additions that need to be made? If not, they'll stand approved as read. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And I'm trying to get the cart before the horse. Okay, Mr. Scrogstad, I'll turn it over to you for the UTV.
Okay, the UTV committee met back a couple of weeks ago, and we kind of discussed some of those things that I was wanting to get in, and we did get those items added to the ordinance, and that ordinance is now updated. If you go to resources and you're on board, if you click on resources, and then you click on committee only docs, and then UTV committee there, and then there's UTV ordinance. And there should be a document in there called UTV ordinance TV revision 8/15/22. If you kind of go through that and you take a look, and you'll see the added language that we added to those, kind of like what we talked about. Prior to our meeting that day before that, I got an email from South Dixon Township that told me that they rescinded, or they got out of the UTV. They removed their ordinance to allowing UTVs to operate on their township roads. So we lost another township in this whole issue. So what I did is, and of course, talking to them, it was because they were getting some pressure from Torma. So then I just got to thinking, I'm going to reach out to our insurance guy, it's Surma. And I was then relayed information to contact information to a Rick Stokluska. Rich Stokluska. Yes, and it's Stokluska. And he's the insurance administrator. And I just kind of talked to him a little bit, and he says he's been getting some phone calls from different counties, whatnot. And apparently this guy had clients out of Michigan as well that had UTVs operating on roadways. And there has been an increase in lawsuits towards the counties that allow the, where deaths are occurring on these roadways. And some of them they are winning, or they're losing these cases. And sometimes, or they're paid out in millions of dollars in judgments. And, you know, and of course, I then say, are you going to be raising our rates if we did that? He says, no, we're not going to raise your rates, but, you know, we're just kind of just tell you that there is an increase in liability if you're going to allow these unlicensed vehicles on the roadways. And, you know, he just kind of basically said that, you know, it could be the estate, you know, because I kind of gave an example. I says, even though they, you know, that they're, you know, agreeing to abide by the rules, and, you know, then they turn around and sue us. And he says, well, it could be the estate. Let's say it's a family and they all perish, you know, in a crash. That's the estate that would turn around and sue the county. It's not that individual, not like probably, I mean, he didn't say this, but I'm kind of giving an idea. You know, a husband and wife, you know, they drive around on the roadways and, oh, my husband, he really liked, you know, we really enjoyed it, and he died. You know, she may not do it, but let's say the whole family perishes in an accident. It could be the actual state that turns around and sues the company, or that sues the county. So I just wanted to, you know, share that with everybody, you know, that conversation. It would be very prudent of me not to share that info. So that's where we're at with the UTV. We're losing county or townships. I got a feeling we're going to lose more as the months go. So that's where we're at with that. So, and then we did vote to send it back to public safety. So it's now in public safety's hands.
Where are we at with the number of townships?
Let me see if I can bring up my map.
I think we're down to 4, Jack. Didn't we have 8 that were in agreement
Yeah.
at the early onset of it? 8
Right.
out of the 22. And I think this latest one brings, it's either 3 or 4 that have bowed out.
Let me look here. Okay, well, with South Dixon being out, that gives us Palmyra, Dixon, Ashton, Bradford, May, and Sublette left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are the only townships that are still in play.
Could you repeat those, please, Jack?
Palmyra, Dixon, Ashton, Bradford, May, and Sublette.
Okay, thank you.
But
Where do you intend to go, Jack? What's your gut feeling on this? I have mine.
Well, you know, you know, I after this last conversation, you know, I'm a little leery, but you know, I'm just one person. I think that, you know, with the 24 of us, you know, we put it in front of the executive and let them decide whether or not to go further with it. And then put it in front of the county board, and then we can vote. It'll be a tough vote.
I go further. Mike? Can I carry that question further?
well, we can do it as a motion and then discuss it. Or we can continue, I would say we can continue the discussion as we're going right now. I would also entertain when we have the opportunity to get some input from the sheriff on it also. I have a couple of questions that I've had come up myself, and I will ask them in just a few minutes as soon as everybody's had their opportunity. Go ahead.
This question's for Charlie. If we don't have an ordinance, can they sue us, Charlie?
If we don't have an ordinance, we're basically essentially saying that we are not condoning having UTVs on the roadway. So they couldn't sue us for that because we're already telling you it's an illegal activity.
I for one, that's my view. It's just, I know you put a boatload of work into this, Jack. And I sure appreciate that.
It's not a matter of that, you know, I don't mind doing the work. I just want to make sure we get it right. That's all.
Yeah. My personal feeling is this is one of these cans of worms we ought to just shut and forget about. That's,
And, you know, here the thing is too, if we turn a blind eye, and we're known for turning a blind eye, and we don't prosecute, or we don't, you know, there's no, and we get a let's just say, you know, we turn a blind eye, we say, yeah, go ahead, but it's illegal, but go ahead and do it. I think that turns around and puts us just as liable. What do you think, Charlie?
There'd have to be a pretty good record of us saying that we're just going to allow you to do something illegal. And I don't see that,
Okay.
at least coming from my office.
I can't see why law, it's gonna be a draw on law enforcement, but if it's a violation, I'm sure our local law enforcement will enforce those violations.
Sheriff, do you have any input?
Morning. Kind of smiling, Jack, when I'm hearing you talk about this over the last several months, because it was over a year ago, we started talking about this, and it seemed like the board wanted to move pretty fast and get things done within the next 30 days. And we kind of took a slowdown, and here we are. So you've learned a lot along the way, and I appreciate too, all the research you've done on this and work you've done on it, Jack. Personal opinions aside, I think certainly the UTVs would be fun to travel around the county on. Is it a moneymaker? Is it part of tourism? Everybody can make those arguments, but if the townships are reluctant, and obviously they are, to allow this to happen, what our grand plan was to have an ordinance that covered all of Lee County, including the municipalities and the townships if they got on board. It would be a lot easier to enforce that way because we'd have one ordinance and one set of rules rather than several sets of rules that we've got right now. So from our perspective, that's what I wanted if it was going to go that route. So it's easier for the deputies to enforce. It doesn't seem like it's going that way right now. So I think all we got left maybe is the county roads and a couple of the townships, if in fact you do pass this ordinance. So I know Keene mentioned the enforcement side of things. We've got a lot to do. I mean, I'm late today because we got a real busy day with a lot of other things going on. UTVs are not necessarily going to be our priority. I'm not saying we're not going to enforce those laws. We will. But it's certainly not going to be our priority. We've got so many other things going on in our law enforcement world right now. So I think it's going to be a tough thing for the county board to kind of get their head wrapped around, because from an enforcement side, I need some kind of consistency. It's one ordinance if you're going to pass it, so that all the deputies are on the same sheet of music as to what you want done, and we'll get it done. If not, the comment that has been made to me several times is they're out there running around now, and yet they are, and there's no doubt about it. The farmers have their exemptions. Has that been stretched? Yes, it has, to the point where they're not using them for agriculture purposes all the time. But it's just, it's just not one of those things where we're going to be out enforcing and setting dedicated time aside to enforce UTV laws throughout the county. We'll have to get them as they come. But there's many more important things out there that we need to do. Obviously, we had a very tragic accident in the not too distant past. We don't want that to happen either. But for us to be proactive and stop something like that happening is like a needle on a haystack. That's very tough. You can't be on every road in the county to try to stop that kind of accident from happening either. So I know I'm not giving you a really good answer here, but you can see from the law enforcement side how problematic this may be as well.
Any other questions or any other input?
well, if you're just looking for comments now, right, not things to emotion. If you don't get the whole
county on board with this and you get a township, we're gonna have to erect signage at each township border. You know, you cannot go beyond this point. We don't have any trails like Wisconsin does to incorporate all this. It just, we got this document. It's a good document, Jack. I applaud you. So if the state of Illinois comes up with something similar, at least we're not starting from square zero. We're probably at 5 or 6 out of 10 as far as an ordinance. We have discussed it. I guess I don't know if we should try to block it here or block it, let the executive pass it on and let the whole board. I don't know if we have the right to block something that should be passed on, or should we block it or try to block it here or pass it.
And I don't mean this to make it sound like I'm trying to criticize your comment, Mike, but I wouldn't look at it as a block, more as I would a decision as to whether, you know, that we agree with it totally or disagree with it totally, or whatever the circumstances are.
Yeah, block probably wasn't the right.
Well, and there again, I'm not trying, you know, to embarrass you or criticize you or anything, because I could have come up with that same comment. I don't think that there's any problems or major issues that if we at the public safety level make a motion and go accordingly as to whether we want to pass it on from our committee to the executive
Yeah, that's
committee.
what
I don't see that there's any problem with that whatsoever. Like, because I think everybody here has an opinion. John, go ahead.
Yeah, just get it passed along without any kind of endorsement. Not that the Public Safety Committee is endorsing this ordinance. Just put it out there for the executive to make the decision. I mean, as the sheriff said, UTVs are running around. I'm looking at it for the safety and financial safety of the county. If we don't have the ordinance, we can't come after us. They're gonna be there one way or the other. And I don't necessarily condemn UTVs, but I don't want to get the county involved in a lawsuit that will cost us money. And sooner or later, that insurance company is going to raise our rates. Simple as that.
Well, I am also concerned about the liability issue for the county, as well as the safety is for some of the younger kids that are running these ATVs, UTVs and mini bikes and dirt bikes and everything. It's a major issue.
But we aren't going to stop that with an ordinance. No. Stupid kids are going to do stupid things. Even smart kids are going to do stupid.
Mike, it's my sense that there's strong feelings on this topic on the part of other board members. So it might be considered a best practice to let it without recommendation, if you choose to go forward to executive and go forward to the full board, and we'll have full board once and for all action as to what approach we're going to take. If you don't move it forward, those strong feelings on the other side of the table are going to push back and want you to move it forward. So you might just as well move it forward. Let's take a full board vote at this month's meeting and we'll have our direction from the full board with everybody's opinions being accounted for.
Okay.
If I can jump in real quick too. Mike makes a good point, and I brought it up to Jack before. If the goal is to try to help folks get around the county and be able to use their UTVs throughout the county, maybe the county explores looking into trail systems, looking into getting easements on properties, doing certain things that we do with bike paths all the time. I mean, that would help relieve from the liability portion. But the other thing too that I wanted to bring up, if you're pushing forward on the ordinance to push it on to the executive, just make sure you do a motion to take off the table first.
We did take it off the table, I think, at the last meeting.
I'm just going based off what I see in onboard, and it says it's still on the table or still tabled.
Yep. As of June. Yeah.
It is on the table.
But they've had a,
That's what.
Okay,
That's what we need per Charlie. I'll make a motion. We take it off the table.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Nicholson. Do I have a second? Take it off the table, second by Mr. Zeman. Any discussion, questions, opinions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Opposed, the same? I think it carried. Okay, motion is carried to take it off of the table. Yes,
then I would make a motion to pass this on to executive without recommendation.
okay, we have a motion on the table by Mr. Nicholson to pass it forward to the executive with no recommendations. Do I have a second?
Jack raised his hand just in
I'll
case.
second it. I'll second it.
Okay, a second by Mr. Scrogstad. Any questions, discussion?
To move it forward. The way it sets, the wording and all, to executive,
Correct, with,
yes goes to executive, no says no to executive.
correct.
Okay, I'm still questioning why we had to take it off the table. In the minutes of last month's, it was tabled in June. But last month we had a motion to take it off the table and we sent it to the UTV committee.
That's correct.
So I don't know why we were taking it off the table again. It was off the table, in my opinion.
So I'm just going based off what it says on board, and in any event, it's off the table now, so
Okay.
it doesn't really matter.
Any other questions? So we're carrying on with the motion. Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So carried. Motion passed. I do have one question. I know it's a little bit after the fact with what we've just gone through, but early on in the concept of the UTV and the ordinance and fine tuning the ordinance, I was of the impression that the goal was to reach a designated path to travel from, say, our county for the lack of use of the state of Illinois, but at least from our county to go north into the Wisconsin area. Those laws are still going to apply in that same fashion, whether it's a designated trail or not, are they not? As far as speed limit and everything that the committee has worked on to try and get an adjustment to or corrections on.
Well, you'd have to designate a particular roadway, but then again, that ordinance, if we was to follow the way it's written in the law, the only way that you can operate these vehicles on the roadway is if the speed limit is posted 35 miles an hour. So in other words, it's not just reducing the speed limit for the UTVs at 35. It's like everybody has to drive 35. That's why it's so popular within municipalities, because they don't have any roads that are over 35 miles an hour. So if we was just to go north on a particular roadway, and still follow the law that it says, is we'd have to find a roadway that leading up to Wisconsin, that roadway would have to be 35 miles an hour or less to follow that road, or we designate a right-of-way trail, to go that route. And then, then we got to find which trails we're going to use, or what right-of-ways that we're going to purchase or get in that regards. So if I answered your question, I don't know if I did or not, but if that's
Pretty much so. It pops into mind though, Jack, with Torma, the insurance underwriters and everything. Are they going to hold their ground, whether it's a one designated path area, or if the UTVs or ATVs are allowed to travel among or on the city streets? I know highway streets are going to be restricted or limited, but I'm just trying to look at the carryover from going to a general path of travel to, a designated path of travel. Are we going to be faced with the same kind of hurdles, whether it's open to the communities on their streets or whatever? So we still have a liability issue, I would think, if they're coming to and from our county, whether it's a designated trail or general use. So and that's what I'm trying to get cleared up in my mind, but,
Well, just to kind of clarify, a trail is different than a roadway. So a township doesn't take care of trails. They take care of roadways. So Torma wouldn't have anything to do with roadways, or with trails. So they wouldn't be worried about that. So it would be, who's going to ensure the trails? And I don't know if it's the individual homeowner would have to take care of that, or how that would be. I'm not for sure. So.
okay. Any other discussion on it? We've had a couple. Go ahead, Mr. Huss.
I'm curious, how does the trails up in these other states, are their Department of Natural Resources are responsible? Liability wise?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just curious.
Okay, if there's no more comments or questions, we'll go ahead and move on. Okay, I skipped over old business. We didn't have anything other than the UTV and yes,
On the one section there, on the dangerous and abandoned properties. I don't know, John, if you have any comment on all that. We're working on it. Tim is working on the properties. We have the one in Compton, and I made the comment last month that the town board may be interested in that. I've talked to Mr. Gilmer since, and I don't really think that's factual, but the neighbor is very interested in it. And I'm gonna stop and see him tomorrow. So that's the only thing I can.
yeah, there was one individual that
Yeah,
Mr. Gilmore gave me his name on. That's what I passed on to you guys. So,
I'm gonna stop chatting.
anybody have any questions regarding the abandoned properties and where we're at with it? Any details that Mr. Boonstra might be able to clear up for you or anything? We have chosen one, maybe two other properties to start to address and start action on those also. So it's going to be a work in progress is what it's going to be. It'll be in
Time work in progress.
right. Okay. Having nothing under new business. Oops. Is D here?
This is something that Jack, I think, wants to take. He's the liaison to the zoning department. So this next item under new business, I think if Jack's still here and can still hear us, he was going to give you an overview of that.
Okay, if you guys click on that, that little thing there, it'll populate a proposed zoning violation process. This is something that the zoning department has been working on, and then it does kind of affect a lot of the board members. But we're trying something different, and for the violation process, and there's a step-by-step process that you see here, and one is a discovery of a violation, a zoning violation. It's an initiated by a citizen complaint, or let's say D finds something. And then as they look further into it, if there's no violation, it ends. If there is a violation, then they move to step 3. And then there's like an informal communication of if it's a low priority or a high priority. Sometimes there are zoning violations that aren't really a high priority, but yet they're attacked. But we need to go after the ones that are higher priority. But anyways, I'm mumbling here. But anyways, one of the things that I wanted to show everybody here is on the second and third pages. It kind of really breaks down in more detail of what this process is all about. And what I want to do is bring your attention to step number 3. And this is where we're going to determine the level based on the zoning ordinance if it's promoting the public health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. Now, some ordinances can be very black and white. And so what we're needing to do is we need to maybe look at some of these ordinances that there may be a gray area where, you know, it's the intent is to promote the public health and safety. But if there's a gray area lining in there, we have the ability to maybe rewrite these ordinances to have that gray area so that's not such a violation. Because we're in the process also of rewriting some of these zoning ordinances. So D just has an ordinance says, if you do this, it's a violation. Well, sometimes if you do this, but it's for this reason, and it's not violating the public health and safety of the welfare of its citizens. So that's kind of like that gray area. So we want to make sure that we have that built into it. So we're going to try to maybe rewrite some of these zoning violations. So we'll have that ability to do that. And we're also going to have an advisory board that'll consist of me, Wendy, and the zoning department to kind of sit down and look at these different violations and maybe, you know, dive in and see which ones are more important. And then we get down to step 4, where it says an informal written notification will be sent to the owner. If we find a violation, what will happen is when we notify that the owner of this zoning violation, we're going to send them a copy of a letter that they're in violation. Each board member that represents that area, like say if we have a violation in zone in the District 1, a board member of District 1 will get that CC'd on that letter that's being sent out to that violation. So that way, if that constituent calls the board member of that district, the board member will know what's going on. That's obviously if he reads his email. So it just kind of helps. So that way that county board member is made aware of these are what's going on in the background. So I think it'll help communicate a little bit better with board members because apparently that has happened in the past. And so this just kind of keeps everyone involved. And then as you go into step 4, 5, it'll get bigger, and then it'll, you know, as you can read the different things in here, but it's just kind of something different. It's nothing that we have to vote on. It's just something that's going on. We can tweak it as it goes on. Maybe take out a step or add a step in there. But anyways, this is just something that's what's happening in the zoning department that I thought everyone should know about.
Any questions or input for Mr. Scrogstad? I think it's
I will
good.
just add my one quick comment. The overarching goal here was to not only, as Jack said, increase communication to you, the board members, so that you're aware of what's going on at an earlier point. So you don't feel blindsided if you get notified about something that's going on in the zoning world. The other really high level purpose here was to put a structure on paper, and so that we're uniformly addressing these violations so that one isn't being treated any differently than another. The other key point, again, just to reiterate what Jack already said, is that there is going to be this advisory committee that will work with Dee to prioritize the level of impact to that health, safety, and welfare. And if it's not a high level, given the workload that's going on in their department, it'll probably be something that'll be set aside or noted for a future conversation. But this will help prioritize the workload of the zoning department that right now is busy with renewable energy and the other items they've got going on. This is just going to help give them some guidance to prioritize. And again, high level communications to all of you.
Dee, would you care to have any? Okay.
I'm really good about putting words in people's mouths, aren't I? I didn't know you were in the room.
You're a good listener. I think it's a good idea. I guess I would have a question as far as the total enforcement on all of it. Is it going to fall on the zoning commission then, or zoning office to follow through with the complaint until it reaches the point of court detention or arrest detention.
Yep, that's addressed all the way in all of these steps, moving all the way up the food chain. The last step of the food chain is where it gets turned over to the state's attorney. And obviously Charlie has the final authority to decide in the courts, how we go forward.
Okay. Any questions, input?
A quick comment. Jack mentioned, I think in step 3, that the affected district board member would be contacted before step 4, where all board members. I don't see language talking about that, but he said
So
like District 2 would get notified.
I think what has been done or what I've been receiving is whenever there's a hearing before the zoning board is scheduled, I generally get notification of that so that I have the opportunity to attend,
The district,
if I'm available. I think that,
a chairman of a committee. I don't.
District.
So Mike, in answer to your question on step 4, I think maybe the step labels might have been just a little off. Step 4, first bullet point, copy of the informal letter, this is kind of the very beginning of the process. That's when all district board members, the board chair, the parent committee chair, which would be the zoning chair. And then when you get to the next,
Okay.
yeah, and then when you get to the next level, that's where the first bullet point, step number 5 says CC all board members, because as we move up in the violation process, if it's not being resolved, then we start notifying more and more people.
Right, got it. Okay. I didn't see district right. Okay.
No worries.
okay, anything else? Okay, I'm going to back up on 2 steps. Charlie, I'll get to you in just a minute. Sheriff, I overlooked the fact of giving you the opportunity to give anything that you have for a report coming out of the sheriff's department.
Just a quick update, personnel changes. We did have 2 young deputies just graduate from the academy last week. They started their FTO program this week. Generally, it's a 10-week field training program. Did very well at the academy. One finished in the top 3 of his class academically, so pretty proud of him. Had another young deputy just start the academy and on Sunday. All 3 of these are for the patrol division. And then we are hiring 2 for the corrections division. They will be starting next Monday. I'm keeping all this straight. And so we'll have 5 new people here, either in the FTO program at the academy or starting in the jail here within the next week to 10 days. So a lot of new faces at the sheriff's office, and finally going to fill some gaps that we've had for the last almost 7 months of this year, or 8 months, I should say. Deputy Presley should be back on or about the end of December, 1st of January from his year-long deployment. So hopefully beginning of 2023, we'll be at full staff. Of course, I won't be here to see that finally, unfortunately. And I am planning on right now bringing Clay Whalen on board on or about September 19th. So he'll have about a 2-month, little over 2-month transition into his new position, which he'll start formally on December 1st. He'll be brought in and appointed as the chief deputy and have the ability to work in all the divisions, get acclimated to what we're doing right now at the sheriff's department and what our plans are for the future, meet all the personnel and just kind of interact with everybody before he actually takes over. So I think it'll be a good transitional period for him.
Okay. Any questions for the sheriff? Comments? Okay, thanks, Sheriff. Appreciate it. Apologize for skipping past you so quickly. Mr. Boonstra, we're going to back up and go over, Charlie's got some updated figures on collections, fines and everything. So Charlie, go ahead.
Sure. So I don't remember the last time I did this. I think it was probably in May. So I'll just start in June. We don't have August numbers yet. So in June, total collections received was $2,622.57. And then in July, just last month, it was $4,289.34. Total received to date for this year is $42,582.48.
Any questions from Mr. Boonstra?
Total for this year. Total. Yep.
Hey, if there's no questions, thank you, Mr. Boonstra. Appreciate it. Having nothing for new business. Just went over the zoning situation and the schedule of events in that. Charlie, do we have anything for executive session?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. So moved by Mr. Hudson, seconded by Mr. Nicholson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Jack, thanks for participating via Zoom.